He has received many awards, and he is on faculty of various IITs as a healthcare innovator. Welcome, Dr. Naveen, to present his dissertation today amongst IMA Haryana colleagues. Dr. Naveen, please.
थैंक यू डॉक्टर पवन। तो पुराने सब लोगों को देख के मिलके बहुत अच्छा लगता है। हरियाणा छोड़े तो बहुत साल हो गए। तो विदाउट वेस्टिंग मच टाइम आई विल स्टार्ट विद द डेलिब्रेशन। आई होप आपको मेरे स्क्रीन तो दिख रहा होगा।
Yes, yes, seen. Ikra.
Okay, it is a very interesting topic actually. Why should a doctor be talking about finances in a hospital? But then there is a reason for that. जो opening line है that says that the true measure of a hospital is not in its balance sheet, but in the lives it restores and the hope it sustains. But it is important to talk about it because there are certain common pain points for all of us. We need to have a survival strategy, a sustainable strategy, and this is a time when there is rising challenge from all around, from corporates, from small hospitals, and from different types of practitioners. But why should we talk about it? Actually, if we go back to the history, the technology and the cycle of change, it has decreased to a much lesser time now. कहते हैं कि जो 1500 से लेकर 1800 तक 400 साल में जितना डेवलपमेंट हुआ था, उससे ज़्यादा डेवलपमेंट 1800 और 1900 के बीच में हुआ, और उससे ज़्यादा डेवलपमेंट पिछले 5-7 साल में हो गया. So when the things are changing so fast around us, we need to be aware of the circumstances, and we need to work on our strategies where we are relevant in terms of sustainability and survival. The crown that we wear as the owners of the hospital, it comes from the hard work that we do as a professional, the risks that we take. We compromise our work-life balance. We put in our life's earnings as investment, and then there is an unforeseen future. Now, I'll just relate a small incident. In 2016, I was introduced to a venture capitalist circle by one of my schoolmates. And in one of its first conference in Bombay, the topic was the future of healthcare industry in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. So since it was a topic which was close to healthcare, so I went to Bombay to attend the conference. And to my surprise, in 2016, 80% of the audience was IIT and IIMs, and 90% of the speakers were IIT and IIM. So it made me very clear that like in metros, where all the hospitals, they are being run by the corporates, time shall not be far where in smaller towns in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, corporates would take over the roost of the healthcare management. In 2017, I started working on the concept of the survival strategies for a small and medium scale hospital. In 2018 and 19, I was invited to give a lecture in a national workshop where the opening slide was a fight between David and Goliath. So this is a very old mythological story which tells about that Goliath was a giant and David was a small man, and they both were fighting. So this can be taken as an example of how we as small hospital owners have to fight with large corporate giants. David very soon realized that Goliath, who was a giant, was because of he actually had a pituitary macroadenoma, which was a growth hormone producing tumor, because of which he was that big. And he very soon realized that Goliath, who had a pituitary macroadenoma, was not able to see beyond a distance. And he fought the war from a distance and won this war. So what we small hospitals have to do is that we have to decide and divide and divine our strategies in such a way that we can fight these big corporates. And this is what I'm going to discuss in next couple of minutes. Now, when we became doctors, we dreamt that we would have our own hospitals. And as we grew from a single specialty hospital to large hospitals, we had a dream of becoming big, earning more, and serving more number of people. With this, there was an aspiration to imitate a corporate structure, to change from a person-based to a process-controlled hospital, to add more number of departments in the hospital, and to add technology to stay valid. But eventually, what happened during this process was that from a small controlled group of employees that we had, it became a multi-layered management system. Then we wanted to have NABH, we wanted to add quality, which added cost of the consultants who were guiding us to get NABH. There was some undue expenditure and there was some actual expenditure. So what I'm trying to share in these next couple of slides is that while from our journey from a small single owned setup to a multi-speciality setup, there were so many things which were added by us in all the different fields, where when we grew, they also grew with us. But eventually, over a period of time, we realized that the things are going beyond our control. We wanted to get out of all these things, but we could not. We had to realize that if we have to pedal the bicycle, if we do not pedal it fast, we are going to fall down. So this is how we actually grew from small to big, but in the process, it costed us dreams. It raised the price. It raised the cost structure of the running of the hospitals, because we are not trained financial or business owners, or we are not trained to how to run businesses. There is there where we struggle for all these things. So while in the process of getting big, the top management spends most of the energy in getting the employees to follow the processes, whereas the staff is busy entering the data, not realizing why they are doing so. The healthcare employees, our staff, our workers. So this is how we progress in our journeys. They lose the touch, and the healers, they become the workers. In a small setup, the workers were loyal to you, they were taught by you, and they were doing practically all the jobs in the hospital. But when the hospital grew big, the number of employees they became more, you required certain more amount of supervisors and the managers over them, which added to the cost of the running of the hospital. The attrition rate increased because with the competition, the other hospitals were trying to pull your employees. There is poor availability of skilled staff, and it takes months to identify, hire, and train and assess people at key positions just to realize that he's not the right person. And the successor is usually not ready. Now, the training of all these people whom we employ, that adds to the cost. The processes that we add in our hospital, that adds to the costs. In turn, there's a loss of the culture, ethos, and the soft skills. So all this adds to the cost of hospital, particularly between 50 and 150 beds, which raises the price or the cost of the running of the healthcare institution. The staff is always busy in entering the data and not becoming the person who had to deliver care. And if we talk about ourselves, चले थे हम हंस बनने और अपनी चाल भी भूल गए. We were good at doing clinical work, but we were poor at data collection. We are poor at analysis of the data. We do not know how the corporates they work for financial and efficiency on the financial and efficiency KPIs. We do not know what all parameters they work on when they run the big corporates. We do not know how to calculate the profitability from all the verticals that are there in the hospital from different departments. We do not know how to take care of the feedback to improve our work standards and to improve the working of the hospital. We have an aspiration to be on the digital map of the country by adopting these standards, but there's no support from the software vendors and digital adoption and artificial intelligence, which is soon going to be necessity from an accessory. We tend to buy equipment in the hospitals which are costly. We tend to buy equipment because we are not trained to analyze the working of the equipment and the output of the equipment, that we tend to buy the equipment which are not very useful to the hospital in terms of bringing revenue, but they cost us dearly. So we have been trained to save lives and not manage businesses. Our wish list was to have a good professional life, to have good earning, and when we grew big, when we had a multi-specialty hospital, someone should take care of the botheration of running the hospital, and this process has to be efficient and it has adequate manpower. The manpower is trained and the people do not leave. But actually, this does not happen, and whatever we have tried to do all these years becomes a noose around our neck. So if we talk about the rising cost in a hospital, what I have tried to share with you is that in the process of growth, we have added manpower, we have added processes, but which we could not control because we were not trained to do that. Now, in next few slides, I'll just share with you a few examples where we lose money in the hospital and do not gain or drive the top line of the hospital. And if we just simply understand few of them, we can control these things and decrease the expenditure. There are certain missed opportunities. We did a survey in our hospital that if we see 400 patients in the OPD, almost 200 patients, they bought drugs from the pharmacy. So we did an analysis and we found that because of the rush during the peak hours in the pharmacy, the people would have preferred to buy the medicines from outside, leading to a decrease in the revenue of the hospital. Adding more number of pharmacies on different floors led to this loss of revenue. Similarly, we did an analysis of that if we suggest surgery to a patient, how many percentage of these patients would actually get the surgery done? And by doing a follow-up phone call, if we could get a conversion of 10 to 20%, that would increase the revenue to that much amount. So simultaneously, where we have to think about how to increase the revenue of the hospital, to run the hospital in a more efficient way, we have to check the cost also, we have to check the pilferages also, we have to check all those places where we are losing the revenue. So what I'm just trying to share with you is different case studies that we have done in our hospital. During COVID times, we have all the empanelments in our hospital. During COVID times, when we were relatively free, I just went into the room where the panel and the TPA staff was sitting. The report that was given to us by the top management was that all the files which had to be dispatched to the empanelment offices are being done regularly. And till the time these files they reach the empanelment office, you would not get money. But on our visit to the office, what I saw was that there were many crores of worth of files which were still lying there and which were reported to us that they had been sent to the empanelment office. So this work which we had done in the hospital and was not sent for getting the encashment was a total revenue loss to the hospital. And similar surveys I did in many of the hospitals around us, and we found that there was a similar story in many of the hospitals. We do not know that if the files are not sent in a particular uh, duration, then there are necessary delays in the payment. But if the files are uploaded in a week's time, then the insurance companies they have got an obligation to release the payment in 15 to 21 days time. So these are small things which we have to keep in check so that there is no loss of revenue in these points, although you have done the work. Similar is all those files which have to be uploaded in these panel patients for OPD patients. Then one more survey that we did was that once a private TPA patient is the bills are uploaded, if suppose the bill amount is a lakh of rupees and the approved amount at time of discharge is 90,000 rupees, we found that the actual amount received in the bank was close to 76%. So there was a 14 to 15% deduction by the insurance companies even after approval while at the time of the payment. When these cases were uh, discussed and talked about by the insurance companies, we could recover almost 7 to 8% of these payments which had been deducted by the insurance company. So all these things would add to the revenue of the hospital, and these are common stories in all the hospitals, multi-speciality hospitals, where we as doctors are busy in managing the patients and thinking that everything is being done in a proper way, but is not being done properly. Now, another problem which happens in this credit business is that staff, they leave, and when they leave, the accounting or the accountability of whatever work they have left behind is not there. So a no dues is to be given only when this properly is being done. One important advice for me from my side for all those colleagues who are into credit businesses, that you should not fall into the trap of a credit cycle, because it requires almost 12 to 18 months of working capital with you. Now, this is the biggest trap where many of the hospitals they fall and eventually tend to lose the money. What you should try is that all the running cost of these cashless businesses, credit businesses, like the salary given to the staff, the salary given to the consultants, the payment done to the lab, the payment done to the pharmacy, or payment to the implants, all these things you should try to clear these bills from your cash business. What I want to say is that if suppose you have done a crore worth of cash business, this business should be sufficient enough to fund all the expenditures in that particular month, and we should not wait for the credit payment to come to furnish all these bills. Because if there are delayed payments, you have to take loans and raise your limits from the bank, which leads to unnecessary wastage of the money in the payment of the interest. Now, in buying processes, there are lots of inefficiencies. Another case study which we did in our hospital was that many of us we choose the vendors for pharmacy and for all other things which come to the store, and we do some price negotiation and fix the prices. So what we realized was that after a couple of weeks or months, these vendors would just raise the price by a few rupees, which is actually a few percentage. But when it comes to the total, this variation of the price, the increase more than the price that we had negotiated with the vendor, costs a certain amount of money. So when we did the survey, what we found was that there was a 4 to 5% extra payment which the vendors had been demanding from us. So this is one thing that we have to keep in mind, that why pay more than what we have already negotiated with the vendor. Delays in the discharges, they lead to occupancy of the room for more number of time. So in another case study that we did, what we found was that if we put a discharge alert a day before, while the patient being discharged the next day, and do all the clearance processes by 8 a.m. in the morning, we can get the room vacant by 12. And eventually, if we count about the number of IP days that we could calculate for all these patients, we saved around 5% of the IP days by doing the discharges in proper time before noon. So you can set up a criteria of discharge before noon and then do a calculation of how many patients you can discharge within the time that you have stipulated. About UPI, then this is a very interesting case study which we had done. One of my friends in Ludhiana, he had a hospital, and he just talked to me on a casual talk. He said that I am seeing the same number of the patients, but everything is computerized. I am giving the receipts to all my patients. Uh, but I feel that the amount which is being deposited in the bank is less than what it used to be earlier. Uh, so I sent my team. We did a audit for all the entries that were being done in this hospital, and what we found out was that the OPD reception people, they had made a nexus. What they would do is that they would take cash from the patient, but give a receipt as the source being UPI. So the owner of the hospital, who is my friend, he would get all the receipts, of which there were certain cash paid receipts and certain UPI paid receipts. But the many of these patients who were given a receipt for UPI payment had actually paid cash. He had no system of reconciliation of the UPI payments with his bank account, which led to almost he lost 18 lakh rupees in 4 months. So that is the amount of pilferage that happened in his hospital. So initially, what he did was he put in an accountant who would do a reconciliation of the account statement, and he would just tally that how much is the UPI credit, check, and the NEFT payment, and how much has been deposited in the bank. So very small effort, but a huge amount of saving was there in his hospital. Now, we have never been trained about what are the key performance indicators in the hospitals. We know everything about our clinical outcomes, but we do not know much about the key performance indicators in the financial part. So, subsequently, I'll tell what all things are important. We do not have strong audit systems in most of the processes of the hospital, which leads to losses in the hospital. Uh, Again, as a case study, we all our accountants, they do all our expenditure entries in the softwares under different headings. So we divided the headings into different groups which were relevant to us. Like, I give you an example. During COVID days, what we realized was that 74% of the cost borne by the hospital is a fixed cost, which is not connected to the number of the patients admitted to the hospital. So even if you have got 1%, one patient admitted in your hospital, that 74% cost will be a fixed cost. So you need to realize where you are spending money. Because if the number of patients are more, this 74% of cost is going to be distributed amongst most of them. Then you need to know what is the cost incurred on the patients per patient basis. So for example, if we talk about patient diet, if there are 10 patients, you pay for 10 diets. If there are 100 patients, you pay for 100 diets. Similarly, laundry, linen, and consumables on the patients, the electricity consumed. So all the expenditures you have to subdivide into groups so that any penny spent gives you a relevant information. So these accounting groups have to be made. You need to know what is the total running cost, what is the running cost per bed of the hospital, what is the running cost per occupied bed of the hospital, and what is the running cost per patient per IP days. Similarly, what we can do is that we can divide all these expenditures, the cost centers, into the revenue generating center. So we have to analyze that which of these cost centers are revenue producing, which of these cost centers are non-revenue producing. For example, expenditure done on radiology, on ambulance, or in the cafeteria is a revenue producing expenditure, whereas a cost incurred in the CSSD is not a direct revenue producing cost center. So you have to differentiate between what all areas you are spending. This analysis of the data as a doctor, it is difficult, but we need to have this done because without this, it is very difficult to stay relevant in terms of finances in the hospital. Now, what our expectations are is that although we are aware of that there are certain things happening in the hospital which are very important in terms of the financial health of the hospital, but we do not have a person who comes to our help to manage these things. So, but we need an adjunct which solves one and all problems and gives more in terms of our of accountability. With this, it restores our work-life balance. But this solution has to be cost effective, and it helps making the processes lean so that we control our expenditure and is person independent and eases the pain points of human resource management and much more. So this is what we expect from our solution. When in our IITs and technology circle we talk about solutions, it is always said that you have to first identify what is a small pain point or a problem in the hospital, then try to find a solution for that, which is a manual solution, and then use technology to replace the manual processes to a technological process. By this, you can automate most of your problems and solve most of them. Now, when we talk about decreasing the expenditure in the hospital, there are certain services which a few hospitals in the neighborhood can club, which is like sharing of services, like having a common ambulance for 2 or 3 hospitals, can sharing of consultants, do a group purchasing, which decreases the cost because the bulk buying is being done. You can have your staff training centers for similar type of specialty hospitals where you can train your staff so that they all can be trained at one place. Uh, I bought a ultrasonic aspirator for brain surgeries. It costed me 25 lakh rupees. I knew that it is not going to be return on investment because if I do 5 or 10 cases per year, whatever amount I charge, I'll not be able to generate revenue of against what I've spent. But then there are certain expenditures which are required to complete the department. Subsequently, I had a requirement for a nerve stimulator and a sensory evoked potential stimulator, which again costed some 50 lakh rupees. But I associated with the vendor and we got that equipment for rent. Although I pay a rent of 25,000 per case, but it is much less than actually buying and investing on equipment, which is 50 lakh worth. Then you pay for CMC, then you pay for repairs and everything. Similarly, instead of having big servers in the hospital, you can use cloud. Appropriate management of the consumables, pharmacy, and the store items. They can be done by just-in-time inventory purchases. Standard treatment packages guidelines can be created. See, when we treat these insurance patients, which are either private or government panel insurance patients, they pay us packages for the surgery. What we realized on an audit was that many of these patients were being given diapers, were being given extensions of the circuits, which were not being paid by the insurance company, and all the deductions were being done. So what we did was that we created certain specific packages of pharmacy and the consumable for these patients, where we know that if a patient is being operated, we are not losing money there. So we should try to create certain treatment and uh, goods packages for these types of patients. The call centers for the hospitals, they again can be shared. By using technology, the supply chain can be predicted. You know how much is to be ordered. You can decrease the dead stock, and the inventory can be very easily controlled. Now, if I talk about solution, there are two options. One is that you employ all these types of managers or head of the units or the area heads who do all these works for you. First, you have to identify what all are the areas of the problems where you can gain money or you can not lose money. Then you identify where there is lapse in the process. Then you train a person who takes care of all these losses and then reports to you. But the problem is to have all these person training them, seeking competence from them, and thinking that they are loyal to you and they will not leave you. It becomes very difficult. So if somehow we can have a technology which can replace all this, will be a good asset in a hospital where you get all these solutions, but the technology that stays with you, it gives you a right information. So I give you an example of robotic process automation. I gave you two examples. One of the procurement where the vendor bill was not matching to what we had set the uh, price at the time of negotiation. So by using a robotic process automation pod, what we can do is that we have to upload two things. One is our negotiated price that we have done while we are fixing the price for the hospital good purchases. And wherever a bill comes, you have to just upload on this RPA pod. If there is any variation, it will bring to your notice, and you can red flag that vendor. Uh, on a day, you can do a validation of thousands of such bills. Similarly, if you have to validate your collection from the software in your hospital to the bank statement, this can be done in a fraction of a second by using a robotic process automation. You just have to upload two things. One is the total collection, the receipts that have been made in your hospital, the list of that, and the bank statement, which could have thousands of entries for one day. And the RPA pods can do an analysis of comparing both of them. And if there is any mismatch of the entry in either of the two sides, it will bring it as a red flag as a notice to you. So the more the automation of the processes of the hospital that you do, the better would be the results, the more would be the savings, less would be the pilferage, and more streamlined the processes would be. So there's a difference between digitization and digitalization. What we think is that if we are using a notepad or we are giving a computerized slip to the patient, that is digitalization. No, that is digitization of the work that we are doing, of the notes that we are preparing, of the charts that we had to write is now being computerized. Whereas digitalization is when you digitalize the processes of the hospital. The advantage of this digitalization is that this is a control process and you can practically digitalize all the processes of the hospital, which decreases the overall cost, decreases the pilferage, increases the revenue, increases the profit margin, and then you are sure and short, you are sure that this processes that you have developed in your hospital by using technology is not going to leave you. So there are multiple options. You can use machine learning, you can use RPAs in the hospital as a use case, and ML for data analysis. Now, this is a very good example, very small example I tell you is that uh, we had issues of appointment in our hospital. So we put in ML for data analysis. And now what happens is that if a patient has to take appointment, while taking appointment, he can be guided that what time he should come so that he encounters lesser rush in the lab and the waiting areas. So these AI-based solutions, they can be used for cross-sectional analysis and for better decision making. In human resource management, it can help in personalized learning, in induction, identifying the strengths of the staff. It helps in helps them focus more on the safe practices rather than learning the processes. Now, I give you an example again. I did a study in 8 different hospitals, of which 6 were in metro. Whenever there is a incident in the hospital which can lead to a potential danger in terms of patient safety or loss to the hospital. Now, this incident has to be reported to someone. As per NABH or quality, there is a list of certain incidences which needs to be reported to the authorities. I did a Google Sheet survey from 8 hospitals, including 6 in the metros. The first question was, were you given induction training? Answer was yes. Were you told about the incident reporting? Answer was yes. What all incidents do you know of? 98% of the staff interviewed could not give an answer to the incident. Now, this becomes important that if you want to train all your staff for all the things, it is very difficult. So what you can do is you can just train the technology and ask the staff to use it so that the errors are decreased. Errors both which can lead to the compromise of the patient safety and errors which can lead to a financial loss. Using the AI technology, we could reduce the discharge time by 75%, which helped us improve the hospital rating. And improvement in the hospital rating, in turn, increases the business to the hospital. There were decrease in the touch points, which led to a better experience. Chatbots were used, and this again. So we did a comparison of the hospital rating, which was an average rating given by the patients to the hospital, to the rating done for individual services in the hospital, like housekeeping, cleanliness, nurses, response time, doctors, treatment, outcomes, experience, everything. So this was a comparison of around 64 parameters. And we could come to a point that it was the delay in response of the housekeeping in the patient area for cleaning the toilets, which, if this factor got a negative ranking from a patient in terms of feedback, these were the patients who would give a lesser ranking to the hospital. So you can do a correlation of what areas in the hospital, if they're lacking in the services, would lead to a decrease in the rating of the hospital, which eventually will lead to a unsatisfied patient, and an unsatisfied patient would mean a loss of the revenue. Using these AI technologies, you can do an auto procurement cycle, decrease in the wastage, red flagging of the vendors, optimization of the usage, and you can actually shift from desktop to lab or handheld devices, which eases the financial expenditure also. The profit and loss analysis can be done easily, and again, MRD management can be digitalized. Yes, pharmacy is very important. So it gives you on your dashboard that how much of the percentage of the prescriptions they were ordered, they were honored, they were not being honored. It also tells that what is the profit percentage from all category of the patients, average sale volumes from each type of patient types. You can generate an auto purchase order and auto alerts for near to expiring stocks, vendor backlisting, and pilferage reporting. So all these dashboard reports are there for your on the dashboard of your screen, so which helps you which helps you organize your purchases in the pharmacy. In terms of quality management for NABH, you can do practically 80% of your work using the softwares where the raw data is generated and analyzed automatically, and you just have to do an analysis of what all things are not proper and do a root cause analysis and corrective and preventive action. So all these things can be done by using technology, which actually leads to decrease in expenditure of the hospital. So financial health assessment, as I said, a complete financial report of analysis, projections, areas of improvement can be got from the technology, viability of doing a project, percentage of cost to contribution margin, financial health score. So all these things can be done using the technology. Now, how to get this technology, build or buy? Since I was interested in IT and all these things, so I was able to make this type of in-house system, uh, which was eventually validated by NABH. We got the platinum certification of digitalization by NABH. Automation of the data entry to help decrease errors definitely led to improved ranking, and we saved on the finances. And as a last slide, I would tell, doing all these audits, we could, and using technology, we could improve the employee satisfaction and retention, which eventually led to better patient care. Improved in the patient satisfaction, we leaned up the systems, we made the system more efficient. The patient volumes, they increased. And during all these processes, we decreased the operating cost by 12%, which led to an increase by increasing the top volume also. That led to a increase in overall 18% of the revenue in the hospital. So overall, if I have to sum this up, I would say that uh, although we as the hospital owners as the hospital owners, we do not know much about managing the processes very efficiently. But if we somehow, and we actually cannot depend on the people who would give us the right and we do not get the skilled people also. But if we are able to get hold of technology, then maybe that can give us a very wise solution to improving the bottom line of the hospital and help you survive and sustain the strategies of the hospital in this current scenario where the competition is very stiff. Thanks, Pawan. Thanks, everyone, for being with me. And I think I can take the questions now.
Uh, There's a question. Hello, Dr. Chitkara. It was a very wonderful talk. I would like to ask you a question by Dr. Mehta. How to execute this in small nursing home, and which hospital software would you recommend for a multi-speciality hospital, 20 to 50 bedded?
Madam, actually, the number of vendors in this hospital software business are numerous. You need to know what you actually want is. If you want just a patient uh, EMR, which is like the electronic record of the patient, then there are hundreds of softwares which are available. But if you want something which is there to help you manage the processes of the hospital, they are very limited vendors and they're very costly. They're very costly. And for a hospital which is above 200, 300 bed, it might become cost efficient based on because it comes as a constant cost or the fixed cost of the hospital. But for a smaller hospital, I think we have to. It's difficult to have such a solution.
There's one more question in the comment section. How do we negotiate better rates with insurance companies? Should open billing be preferred over standardized treatment packages?
Madam, actually, the negotiation it depends upon uh, two or three things. One, whether you are NABH or no. Second, what city you are in, and who you are negotiating it with. What I have found out of my experience is that as a standard practice, they would, because they do not want to pay more to the hospital, so they would try to give you the lesser amount of money. The palm greasing, it helps at many points.
Yeah, that's
So
very common. Mm.
yeah, so that is one thing which can be taken, which can be thought of. But besides that, I don't think so. How good a negotiator you are, it only depends upon that. There's no
And there's
one foolproof trick here.
another question in the comment section. How do we create accountability systems without disrupting patient care quality?
So that can be done only if we use technology.
Yeah, agree.
I
I
had a
think,
I was talking with Dr. Pawan initially. So if IMA Haryana actually see, I have made this out of my you can say fun or because of my excitement and my knowledge about from IT. See, I was an assessor for NABH, Irana Hospital. I'm a clinician. I'm interested in IT also. So based on this combination, I could design it for myself. But then, yes, if there are small hospitals who want this type of solution, I can easily lend my hand to help them. And I'm sure that this solution is better than most of those available commercially. Because when we went on for this challenge of digital adoption by NABH, throughout the country, we got the maximum score using this solution. And I think it can be just price or charges should not be any issue because it is by a consultant, by a doctor for other doctors. So I don't think it should be
yeah,
an issue.
that would be really wonderful move.
Yeah.
So
So
we